Hi, everyone. It's 10 o'clock and time to get started. I'm Nancy Langton, Associate Dean of Accreditation and Strategic Initiatives at the Lewis College of Business, Brad D. Smith Schools of Business at Marshall University. I'm excited to be with you today. Welcome to the Herd Insights Small Business Webinar Series. We thank you for taking the time to attend this event. It's a part of a webinar series given by Lewis College of Business faculty and local business professionals. The series showcases the combined expertise of our best faculty and seasoned and knowledgeable practitioners from the business community in which we engage. The goal of the series is to help small businesses achieve success in a changing and dynamic business environment. Before we start the event today, I would like to say a few words about the college and its mission. The Lewis College of Business and Brad D. Smith Schools of Business has a mission to be the next generation business school and to promote a high quality business education and economic development. We do this by implementing our strategic priorities for external engagement, including lifelong learning programs, the Business Leadership Symposium, the Dean's Distinguished Speaker Series, and the CEO panel that many of you have attended. The college also has outreach centers, including the Center for Entrepreneurship and Business Innovation, or the I-Center, that helps small businesses innovate with a focus on design thinking techniques, and the BB&T Center for Leadership that promotes consulting and research projects between students and the community. Our new transformative sales and service center provides sales training and networking opportunities. The college also cooperates with the Brad D. Smith Incubator to help promote entrepreneurship throughout the region. As the nation and the state are rebuilding businesses and economies coming out of the pandemic closures and lockdowns, the Lewis College of Business is committed to supporting our local businesses, alumni, and other stakeholders in re-engaging, recharging, and redesigning their business models. Hence, we have developed this webinar series that consists of presentations on topics such as strategy, technology, marketing, finance, and more. We hope that you enjoy today's presentation and take something out of it for your business or professional activities to make West Virginia and the surrounding area a better place for business and community engagement. Today's informative and engaging presentation is titled Business Reimagined, Utilizing Cloud Technology to Improve Performance. It is brought to you by Dr. Timothy Bryan and business professional Shayna Chapman. Tim is an assistant professor of accounting here at Marshall. He is the program director for the Master of Science in Accountancy degree program and has over 20 years of public accounting experience. Shayna is the chief strategist at Shayna Co. LLP. She has 25 years of experience in accounting. She is a board member for multiple technology companies and was twice named one of the most powerful women in accounting by CPA Practice Advisor. Tim and Shayna will discuss new ways of managing business after the pandemic, examples of building a cloud ecosystem, and highlights of cloud technology benefits. Please feel free to ask questions via the chat function throughout the presentation. Tim and Shayna will answer these questions at the end. I now turn it over to our presenters.
All right. Thank you very much, Nancy, for that kind introduction. And before we move on with the actual presentation side of it, I'd like to talk a little bit more about my co-presenter, Shayna. Shayna's a daughter of Marshall, and she eagerly accepts invitations to help out with classes, with presentations. And as just a few minutes ago, I said she's kind of an overachiever, which honestly is the reason I asked her to work with this on me, because of that. So I am extremely pleased to have Shayna presenting with me, and her presentation will hopefully pull mine all the way through. So I hope you do enjoy it, and we look at it. As we said, the title of our presentation is Business Reimagined. And the pandemic recovery associated with it. And really, the thing that I'm going to focus on in mine is change and how businesses need to adapt. And something I thought was interesting is just as far as myself and looking at change was, I've always been in the habit before I go to a business meeting or met with a client or meeting with students, is I run brush my teeth. It's just a habit I've been into. So guess what I did just a few minutes before we got together? I brushed my teeth. I'm not sure why, because I don't think it matters to any of you, but it's just a demonstration of how change can be difficult because we're so ingrained in what we do. So let's move on to the next slide. So social change has often been studied, and Lewin is probably one of the first ones that, and often cited one as far as change. What does it take for organizations to change their way of doing things? And he describes it in a 3-step process. The first one is a mental unfreezing. That is the willingness to accept we're going to have to change what we're doing associated with that. So we unlock our minds and our attitudes and our actions so that we can then change our whole group values and practices along with it. And then his third step, which I now kind of question, is we then refreeze to the change within it. So this has been around for a very long time, longer than I've been around, and I've been around quite a while. So Lewin's theory says that we need to refreeze, that is to relearn, but now it might be the new refreeze is that we actually just have change. So let's move on to the next slide. This is a phrase that I really like as far as it's from Ernest Hemingway, and it's from The Sun Also Rises. And he says, it's been referred to as Hemingway law of motion or change. And he says change happens 2 ways, gradually and then suddenly. The change and how our society changes, how we do business is changing exponentially within it. And it's always that way. And another thing that has been stated about change is that change will never, ever be as slow as it is today. Think about that for a moment, particularly given the last 1.5 years of how we've been doing business and how many of you have had to adapt rapidly to change, but it will never be as slow as it is. We have learned and adapted to change in the environment, in our economy, in our just social interactions, and we now know that's possible, which means it opens the pathway for us to change even more rapidly associated with it. So I like to think of that. Maybe it's been fast, but change is never going to be as slow as it's been today. So let's move along. So one of my favorite authors associated with organizational culture is Edgar Schein. And he has just basically what I would call an ever-evolving theory of change and what it takes. But the basis between underlying his theory is that for change to occur, the pain of not changing has to be greater than the pain of changing. So think about that a little bit. We are so stuck in our ways often that for us to change, we have to feel like it's worse off for us to change than for us not to change than for us to change. Now, many people, when they've looked at Dr. Schein's theories and his implementation ideas, say that the way to implement change and way for organizations to push through change is to make that pain of changing easier. So when you're doing things, we think, look, instead of punishing somebody for not changing, what we're going to do is maybe reward them for changing, or just try to demonstrate how much better we will be because of change. Well, then COVID-19 hit. Okay, now the pain of not changing could have been extraordinary, and was extraordinary. If you look at many of the businesses who failed during this pandemic, they often did not change the way they were doing things. So now we have this huge pain created by, if we don't change, it's not going to happen within that. So change occurred, and it occurred rapidly within it. The as far as what is the pain associated with it. A survey of the Association of the International Certified Professional Accountants, which I always get confused because it's the exact same letters of the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. They conducted a survey just a couple months ago at the end of March, and approximately 46% of businesses indicated that the pandemic created either a significant or moderate negative impact on their businesses. However, almost 20% of businesses indicated a positive impact because of COVID. My guess is they changed. And then there were a 30% that said basically no impact because of COVID. Again, my guess is they changed. So what has happened with that change? Let's move on to the next slide. We're not plan B. Plan A was the way we used to do things. Plan B, and these are the most significant things, at least in my view, as far as what's happened. Work from home. I worked from home for about 3 months. Honestly, I don't remember walking into the office other than to come get some files that I had on my computer that in my office that I needed to do from home. So I worked from home. My wife did too for a couple months anyway. There's also now been new ways of managing. How do we keep track of our employees? How do we keep up with our customers when we're not working in the office anymore? We're not going to see them. Another move is demand for housing outside of cities. That could be very good for us because there's really no city in West Virginia that would be considered a very large city. So I'm talking about large cities within it, decline in office needs, and then labor shortages. And I'm going to focus primarily on this work from home and just touch on a couple of the other items there. So let's move on to the next slide. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say there are some businesses that really haven't changed so much. Leisure and travel industry, hospitality and restaurants associated with those. While there was a little bit of action, particularly in some restaurants with delivery functions, they basically moved back to where they were before as far as indoor seating. And you really can't travel remotely. You have to be there and do it. So those aren't going to change. And as you know, there's production and warehousing areas, medical and health and safety, and outdoor activities such as construction, and even our fire and safety officers that we may have within that group, the production and warehousing, medical, outdoor activities, they took on the new term, at least I'm going to call it new, of essential workers within that. So those are that they have to do their jobs, or at least we haven't figured out a way for them to do their jobs in another fashion. So let's go on to the next slide and talk about work from home a little bit more. First of all, a survey, this was done just very recently by the Harvard Business Review, says that 70% of businesses plan to shift from working in the office all the time to now a hybrid, that is some work from home, some in the office, to be permanent, 70%. That's a huge number. So what does this mean? First of all, there is a bit of a risk of diversity within it, and I'll talk a little bit more about diversity here. So by diversity, I don't just mean, I guess the traditional one might be race or sex or sexual orientation or even religion associated with it. I think the biggest concern in diversity is age. There is a major gap between people my age and older that are in the workforce and how they might adapt to change, and younger people and how they might adapt for change. So that diversity, it may be that the older, more experienced workers would say, you know what, I can retire. I don't know that I want to do that. That's not necessarily good for a company to lose that experience. The next thing within it is culture inclusion. The social belonging to your company or the organization that you are is important. Many people look at the business and the business environment and the people they work with as not only, maybe not just their second family, but their primary family. And another thing to look at is that what does it impact as far as just overall career? And before the pandemic, which may not apply at all, surveys had found that work from home employees had lower promotion rates. Well, we can't really do that if most of our employees are working from home. So that at least has to do it. I'd like to talk about that culture inclusion. One of my former students who lives in Southeastern Illinois works for Dell Technologies. Dell Technologies has no location in Southeast Illinois. Southeast Illinois is a very rural area. And Dell realized that there was a need to have social inclusion within and culture inclusion within it. And just last week, I thought it was very interesting. She posted on LinkedIn, they did a mixology social gathering. And so this mixology social gathering was quite interesting because they took their basic work group, and then they hired a fancy bartender to show them how to make drinks. So I thought it was interesting. Perhaps alcohol wasn't necessary, but I did think it was interesting how they had done that. So let's move on to the next slide. So let's talk, as far as just a few surveys, these are just kind of bullet points that I'll bounce off of. How did it work this last year and a half of going through the work from home? Almost all employees, 83%, and most employees, 71%, said that work from home was successful within their businesses. We still realize that we need to have that team and some culture, as I've talked about, within it. And generally now they're leaning more toward a hybrid, that the basic consensus is that a 3-day week would be about right. However, we still need to worry about less experienced employees, and they need that office inclusion, and perhaps much more frequently than just 3 days a week to start out with. Again, this was a very recent survey. So next slide, please. Other things that happened as far as the work from home, a lot less use of mass transit. Obviously, if you're staying home, you're not going into the office. There's been a significant decline in brick and mortar. A matter of fact, a recent survey, again, the same the Association of International Certified Public Professional Accountants, gracious, I told you I got the name confused, that about 30% of companies plan on reducing their office footprints. Okay, 30%, even though it's not a majority, it is still a very large number. We're looking at a substantial reduction in the office. Warehousing and kiosks is probably going to be even more, the shop at home things. Business travel may permanently be reduced now, as opposed to in the past where it was considered originally that it was just going to be a short-term event. Then the next thing that's happened within it is that the migration out of big cities. Is everything going okay? My slides are looking a lot different. All right, so the migration out of big cities, again, could be a great thing, as our namesake Brad Smith has done. They're promoting people to do work remotely in West Virginia and paying bonuses for them to do that. So that could be another good thing for West Virginia as far as attracting talent, if you're looking at that. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. So this is the reimagining managing employees. My wife's in human resources, and human resources, matter of fact, one time she described it as the principal's office of an organization, which I thought was quite interesting. So the human resources has often been considered that function within a business that is the rule enforcer associated with it. In a work from home environment, in a flexible work environment, that has to be, as opposed to enforcing, here's our rules that we have to do. We have to look at things that we need to be doing as far as making the worker comfortable in their position, utilizing technology for enhanced performance, and constant flexibility within the design. With, as I mentioned before, not overlooking the age diversity that could be associated and necessary for a successful business. Can we move to the slide? Yes.
Tim, Shayna got disconnected, so I put up slides. And
okay.
Is this the slide you're on?
I'm on the slide that says reimagining managing employees. There we go. And that's, I'm going to tell a brief story about this. Hopefully Shayna will get connected again. So I'm going to tell a little story about the managing employees. Almost 20 years ago, and it might actually be more than 20 years ago, I had an employee who worked for me, and she drove about 30 minutes one way to get to the office. She did accounting services for our clients. That was her exclusive work. And she had children, she had 2 boys, both of them were getting into high school, were active in school events, and she was basically missing all of them because of her requirements to come into the office and work. So we developed a way that we could move and had her work from home. Now this 20, 25 years ago, didn't have anything like the technology that we do now. And my partners were concerned about how would I hold her accountable. And I said, it's going to be very easy. If she's not getting work done in the same amount of time she had in the past, she's not doing her job as well, and that isn't working. As it turned out, she got things done quicker, and our clients loved it because we were a wide area as far as geographical, and they got into the technology as well. So I'm going to shift ahead now, couple to the next slide, please, and I'm going to skip this one. It's really it's a segue into utilization of technology. So that's going to be doing it. Now I'm going to go to just the accounting function. You're probably thinking, this guy's been talking for 15 minutes and he hasn't brought up accounting yet, and he teaches accounting. Accounting is still important. It's a very essential function for business, and it may be even more important for a business operating remotely, because it may be the only objective measure of how we're performing, since we can't necessarily see our employees face-to-face, or we don't talk to our customers face-to-face the way we used to. However, even though this is a very important area within it, at the end of 2020, so just a few months ago, 40% of small and medium-sized businesses indicated they did not have an accounting solution developed online. This is from a remote working environment. They still hadn't adapted their accounting solutions to it. Most have realized that the work from home works, so they need to embrace the technology associated with it and those things that are available technology-wise, as far as in managing their business, their employees, and even their accounting functions associated with it. And I don't see Shayna back yet. So I am ready to transition it over to Shayna if we can.
Alina, is Shayna back?
He just now rejoined. I just let her in, so we should be good shortly.
Okay. I'm really glad to hear that.
One thing we have learned over this time period is that our virtual presentations don't always go the way we planned them to. So for the audience, we apologize for the delay. Shayna should be coming up. Shayna, can you hear us? There you are.
Hi.
Hi, Shayna. Do you want me to do your slides, or do you want me to unshare and you put them
I can
up?
share. I can share. So we're good. Okay.
Okay.
All right. And you have my video, and I'm going to share my screen. So, so Tim, thank you for introducing me. I just want to make sure we are up. Nancy, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. We can't see the slides yet.
Okay. All right. So what happened was, and we're going to talk about this as actually part of the presentation, is my computer did an automatic update. And so that was not expected, and I apologize for that. So I'm trying to start. It's having an issue. Nancy, go ahead and do the screens, and I will go. You can do them. My computer's just being slow, where I rushed to get it all back up when it shut down. So I apologize for that profusely.
Is this where you'd like to be?
Yeah, that'll be fine. Oh, it's got me ready now to share screen. It's ready for me to do it. May I take it?
Sure.
Okay. Or it says it is. So we're going to hope it's a go. And it's choosing the screen right now, and we'll go get through this. All right. And here we go. And I'm just going to fast forward it to the right screen for us. All right, so again, I'm sorry about that. So what happened was my computer did an automatic update right in the middle, and I was the one with the presentation, so I apologize again. So what I'm gonna do is get through this for you guys and talk about what it means to be in the cloud. I had seen Tim's presentation and been through it, and he did such a great job of explaining COVID and how it worked and what happened during COVID with everybody and the changes that made for businesses. And it wasn't only businesses such as the restaurants and those kind of things, but it was service businesses. It was accounting firms as well, which is what I have. So what we did as part of an accounting firm was then quickly figure out how to use the cloud to bounce our clients back. And luckily for ourselves, we were already a purely cloud firm. Everything we do is in the cloud. My people can work from anywhere, anytime. And so now it was, how do we take this and make this into something our clients can do? So, so we're going to explain, I'm going to go through these concepts for you fairly quickly then. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is understanding what the cloud means. And then we're going to talk about the highlights of some benefits of the technology and examples. But first, let's talk about your desktop accounting programs. If you have desktop accounting program, then these are the things that you're used to seeing: accounts receivable and payable, payroll, all the things that are listed here. And most of these things are done somewhat, you're doing them in the accounting program, but you may be mailing invoices or getting paying payables, writing checks. You may be delivering payroll checks to your employees, or they are getting direct deposit, but there's some manual preparation of that payroll. Bank reconciliations, you may or may not still be getting paper. And then to make these things like payroll go into the system, you might have to have some journal entries if you aren't using the actual accounting system's payroll itself. You may be using a separate system or doing it by hand and putting journal entries in. And then where the desktop accounting programs really slow you down is in financials. A lot of times what happens, and I know this because I have clients that still do this, they have great bookkeepers, but they don't know everything we know on the accounting side, where this is what we do for a living. And we have to look at the financial statements and decide if there are any changes that need to be made, if there are any errors. So you send it to us accountants, and then you wait a while. And then we ask questions. We try to get an idea of what needs to happen. We send back changes. You input those changes. And then you're finally ready to make decisions or send those financial statements to bonding companies or whatever you need to be done with them. This is kind of a slow and arduous process. It can take, 15 days. It can be a month, or during tax season, you could be waiting 3 months on your financial statements because you're wrapping it up at the end of the year with your tax return. And you're in the middle of a bunch of things that your accountants are doing for other people too. And with the cloud products, we're going to try and solve some of these issues and many more. So the next thing that we're going to get into with the cloud is that Jack Welch, and you may know Jack Welch if you're older. If you're younger, maybe you don't know, but he's the former chairman and CEO of General Electric, and he talks about work-life balance. There's no such thing. There are work-life choices and the consequences of them, basically. And this is true. And so this gets back into a little bit more of what Tim was talking about with COVID-19 and the business aspects, the employee aspects, and the fact that we have a couple of generations, millennials and Gen Z, that are saying, hey, wait, we we realized that we don't have to be, our butt doesn't have to be in the chair at the office. We can do our work from home, and we like it better. We're around our families. We don't have commutes and those kind of things. So there's the business aspects of cloud accounting, and then there are the employee, those type of business aspects of cloud accounting, and not just for your employees, but for you as business owners. I have found in an accounting firm now that we're as much interested in getting your financial data efficiently and accurately, but we're also worried, in my firm we are, about the stress that all this creates on owners and employees, and we want to relieve some of that, and cloud accounting can do that. And COVID-19 brought about changes where people realize that this is possible now. So now's a good time to take advantage of it. Before we get into the benefits of cloud-based accounting solutions, for those of you who don't know what the cloud is, it basically means you're working from the internet. Your information is stored in the cloud on the internet. So some examples that are easy to understand are Facebook and Twitter. Those are cloud-based solutions. You're not doing that in your home on your hard drive. You're doing it, you're logging in from your phone, your tablet, etc. Those are cloud-based solutions. So is Netflix and Hulu. And a little more businessy, but not necessarily business, maybe your Gmail account. When you're sending emails, you're opening up Gmail, logging into the internet and sending those Gmails, or using a Dropbox box to store documents. Those are examples of cloud-based solutions. And so now when we start to think about accounting in that aspect, we can take our accounting systems and do the same thing. And there's some real benefits to those. And probably the biggest one, and the most important one, is the flexibility and mobility of having an accounting system that is located in the cloud. You can easily do it anytime, anywhere. You can, for instance, I traveled last week. I went away for a week. I was in Florida. I wasn't even here, but I put in a full week's of work. Sometimes I worked from 8 to 5 during the weekday. Sometimes I worked 5 to noon. Sometimes I worked on Sunday, so I didn't have to work on Tuesday. But I put in a full week's of work, and in the meantime, I was able to access my accounting system from my iPhone, or communicate with my employees from my iPhone or tablet while out doing things. I didn't have to have my butt in my chair at the office, and that gave me some time to actually get work done, but be able to go away and be someplace I needed to be for the week that wasn't in Ohio, where I'm stationed, where my brick and mortar office is. Flexibility and mobility is huge for both the owners and the employees. Collaboration, being able to work with your employees and owners, or your employees in the cloud internally. You guys can be in the same thing at the same time. A lot of times with desktop accounting programs, you can't do that. You can't have two people in the same program at the same time, or at least working and collaborating at the same time. In a cloud-based program, you can. And even further, you can call your CPA and say, hey, I can't get this thing to work in my accounting system, and you don't have to wait and send me a backup for me to restore and take a look. I open it right then from my system, and I'm able to collaborate with you and fix it on the spot. Like, tech support, a lot of times when you call, we're able to fix your accounting system the same way. So there's external collaboration happening, and we're able to get information and fix things much quicker than the old way of passing information back and forth and waiting for answers to questions. The integration of it all, for sure. You can do several different things with integration, where other programs, maybe you're outgrowing your desktop program and you see that there are other applications available that would solve the need without replacing your entire desktop program or your entire accounting program. This works much better in the cloud because there's integration, where you're not repeating the information that you're getting from one app and manually entering it into your accounting system. You can integrate those items and actually seamlessly pull that information in. It also helps for accuracy because you're getting rid of the human error in between, because the information's coming in seamlessly. Security. Great benefit is security. People like QuickBooks, Sage 50, Amazon, they all have people whose job is only to take care of IT infrastructure. You aren't having to hire people to sit inside and take care of your desktop program make sure that it's secure because they're doing that for you. And it's extremely secure and is considered as secure as online banking is. That being said, you do need to do some things in your office to maintain at least a minimum level of security there, like multi-factor authentication, antivirus systems, etc. But I can guarantee that Amazon's security is way better than my security. I am not an IT professional. Cost savings. When we talk about being in the cloud, one of the things is cost savings. You may look at a cloud accounting product and compare the price of that product to the product in a desktop product. And that's the only thing you want to compare. And you might find that the cloud accounting product is actually a little more expensive. But that's not the only cost to your actual cloud, your actual accounting system. You have infrastructure there. So if you're paying for servers and hard drives and all the things that it takes to make that desktop product run, you have to consider that in your cost versus your online in the cloud accounting product. Not only that, but the return on your investment. By the time we get done with all these benefits we're speaking about, you'll realize that you're getting a better return on your investment with a cloud product, and therefore that is part of your cost savings. Now, this one's kind of funny and very applicable right at the moment. Automatic updates. Let's talk about those. Sorry, again, by the way. So automatic updates, where a lot of you may be familiar with Microsoft Office. We used to buy it. You'd get Microsoft 2010. It'd send you a few updates here and there, but then you had to buy Microsoft 2016 to get any major changes. In a cloud product, it's subscription based, so you're paying a monthly fee, and those updates, you're getting the newest and best updates constantly, and that actually includes security updates that are always happening. And so what's happening is you're always getting the best product. To go with this is automatic backups. So in case you're afraid you're going to lose things, these people, they're backing up your data, these accounting solutions everywhere on multiple servers, so that if something happens, you can restore it. Quality control, everybody's working in the same place at the same time in the same atmosphere across locations, so that gives you better quality control. And along those same lines is paperless and organization. Because you're all working in the same spot all the time, you can be paperless. Your whole accounting system can turn paperless, and the organization of it is much better. And this all ultimately leads to a competitive edge. If you're doing all of these things, I guarantee you, you're getting faster financials, being able to make decisions, and you have an edge over your competitor who is not doing this. And if they are doing this, then you're solely competing on product. And that is where you want to be anyway. That's what you really like. Don't let your accounting system hold you back. Do what you can to make it seamless and give you an edge over your competitors. And then you can take your actual product that you're in the business of, and that is where you're competing. When choosing products and accounting solution, it does depend on your industry and these kind of factors. Don't just run out and buy something because it's the popular product. Think about it, talk to your accounting professional about it, make sure you're choosing the product that is right for you. And if you need any peripheral products, that integration is there with that specific accounting product. And speaking of all those things, these are your just a bunch of various products that work in the cloud. In the middle are your three major accounting products: QuickBooks Online, Xero, Sage 50 Cloud. Around them are payroll programs, timesheets, shopping carts if you're retail, sales tax. Avalara does international sales tax. TaxJar does a great job of just national sales tax. Bill.com's payroll. This is also scalable. Those are more small business in the middle, but if you grow and you need something bigger, Sage Intact is a nice program that grows up with you. And NetSuite, you hear that on XM radio all the time. It's an Oracle product, and here I have it listed as CRM like Salesforce, but really it's a NetSuite. It's an Oracle accounting product that's cloud-based. So just to rehash what we were talking about with your old desktop product versus your new cloud product, these were the things when we talked about desktop that you were doing. A lot of paper invoicing, but the cloud product, you're sending that invoice in the cloud product. It's shooting out in an email. The other day I did some tax planning for somebody, uploaded it into a web portal. She paid me in 2 minutes. 2 minutes, I got an instant response with payment. No sending it, waiting weeks, reminding her 30, 60, 90 days. I got paid instantly. Paper checks for accounts payable, not anymore. You can do an entire approvals process with you looking at it, approving it, all paperless, bill being sent, paid, done. Manual entry of payroll, no. We're going to use a payroll, even if it's ADP or Paychecks or an accountant, an accounting office or another bookkeeper. Paperless and seamless comes right on in. And then those bank reconciliations come in through bank feeds. And even better, every day at the top of your product, you will see what the bank says you have or credit card company says your liability is and what your accounting product says. QuickBooks Online is very good at this, shows you a dashboard, and you know if you have something you need to know and fix. Manual expense reports, some of these products track mileage and expenses right in them, or you can get a peripheral third-party app that will download into it and take care of it. So while a desktop product is very reactive management, a cloud product is proactive. Because of that collaboration, you can make decisions on a dime. You can literally look at something, look at a segment, a line of business, whatever it is, and say, that's not working, stop it today. And that's because you're doing things in real time, or at least timely, if not real time. You're doing them much faster than you ever would in a desktop program. So the three big takeaways from having a cloud product are that it's very efficient because you're doing things so quickly in the collaboration. It is scalable, meaning that you can take it from a small program. QuickBooks Online itself has like 4 or 5 different programs, right up to QuickBooks Advanced, which is rather large now, takes large companies. And then you can move up to a Sage Intacct or a NetSuite or whatever you need to. You can scale, but you can also take that small accounting program like a QuickBooks or a Sage, and because you can add third-party apps to it so easily, you can scale within that even in a smaller business and grow your business and grow the accounting system with it very easily. And most importantly, probably, is accuracy, because you're taking away some human error. These things are happening. The numbers are feeding into each other. You're not taking numbers from one thing and then keying them in. Everything's more it's more machine learning and popping in, or it's a repeatable process that's coming in, and it gives you more accurate financial statements in real time. So those are the three big takeaways I take from cloud accounting and what they can do for your business, and also the employee aspect. And I'm sorry that I went through that really fast, and thank you so much for your patience on my automatic update. I'm going to turn this back over to Nancy for thank you and questions.
Thanks, Shayna and Tim, for a wonderful presentation. We learned a lot today about more ways to use cloud technology to enhance our business. I'll now read some of the questions that were posted during the event and some that arrived by email before the event. So the first question is, you spoke a lot about accounting, but how do I get my employees to communicate efficiently to make all of this run smoothly if we aren't in the same physical location?
So Nancy, I'll take that question. I actually do this in my own firm. And we use, Microsoft has been around a long time, and there's a lot of other kind of competitor spaces. In my office, we use Microsoft Office 365. And we use Microsoft Teams, and I highly recommend it. There's also Slack boards, and Google has some things. But with Microsoft Teams, we keep that open. So think about the chat rooms that used to exist back when you had America Online or AOL or Yahoo, etc. With the Microsoft Teams, you can communicate constantly. And when that communication, that written communication seems to be breaking down, you just easily hit the button, and the next thing you're talking to each other on a phone call. And if that's not good enough, you hit a button and you're doing what we're doing right now, a meeting. And then to take it further, you can share screens. So that collaboration, it's real time all the time, and it's been very helpful. And I highly recommend a Microsoft Teams or something like that to keep you going.
Okay, great. We have another question. How can costs be managed in a hybrid or work from home environment?
Tim,
Tim? would you like to answer that, or Shayna, either
Oh,
one?
yeah, I
Sounds
think
like-
Tim raised his hand, but he's on mute.
Oh,
Well, as I mentioned, very briefly, there are a lot of measures for employee performance other than when did you show up for work and when did you leave, that can still be managed very effectively doing a remote from work, working from home environment, or just a total cloud environment associated with it. For instance, if we have a sales force, our key performance measure is going to be their sales. It doesn't matter how many times I showed up at the office to do that. What matters are their sales associated with it. In my business, which same as Shayna's, although just I got a couple years head start on her, my most important thing was my billable hours associated with my employees and my ability to bill those times. And even as I had mentioned 25 years ago, my partners were very much concerned about having someone work from home. How could I manage them? I'm like, it really doesn't matter how often or when she's in the office. What matters is she communicating with our clients, and is she getting their work done for them? Those can easily be measured, along with, is she generating the billable hours that we had in the past? So we just have to change our mindsets of what our performance measures associated with it, and we can look at those costs and manage those quite effectively, I think.
okay, great. We have another question. Do all cloud systems talk to each other seamlessly?
Oh, I'll take that one. They do not necessarily. So I don't want to build up this expectation that it's all, roses. There's some work that needs to be done, and you do need to understand that it's great to have your core product, and you need to be thinking about your peripherals. So some of them require connectors. So you may have a great shopping cart, for instance, if you're a retailer that you love, but it doesn't necessarily work with your accounting system. But there may be a connector that pulls it in. And if not, most everything works with CSV values, which is basically an Excel. The one system will download to Excel, and then the other one will bring it in. But for the most part, if you choose a really good accounting system, you can go out on their site and look, and it will talk about what integrates with it. So when you're considering this, go ahead and consider all the parts that you might need and how you don't have to go real in depth with it, but at least consider them and how you're going to put it together. But I guarantee once you get that ecosystem together, it's going to be the best thing that you did.
All right. Another question about the cloud. Can you do manual backups of cloud data?
So just to reiterate first, these companies are constantly doing backups for you, which is nice. But I also understand that sometimes you just feel more comfortable if you have backups. Some of them will, and some of them won't let you do backups of data. It's very easy, though, to call tech support and get a backup. If you're in some of the advanced programs, it's part of the package to do backups. And there's always third-party apps coming out that will try to latch on to one of the accounting programs so that they can do backups. So the answer is yes and no. It depends. It also depends, we didn't talk about this, but what kind of cloud product you're using. If it's maybe a hosted product versus a true cloud just operating. So that's a little IT-ish in speak. And so those kind of things that you can do manual backups in pretty easily, but it just kind of depends what system you're choosing.
Okay, great. We have another question, which could be to both of you. The culture of an organization has been shown to be an important determinant of performance. Can you provide a couple of coaching points on how to build and maintain culture in virtual environments?
Well, I'll start with that. First of all, when you look at culture, just be aware that that's something that we need to be concerned about. So the question is very valid. How do we retain culture? I think you're seeing that the majority of businesses are not going to go 100% hybrid, although there will still be some. For instance, my former student who works in Southeast Illinois but works for Dell Technologies, in implementation of systems all around the country, but it's not all around the world. So you have to actively pursue activities within the culture that will still promote that within them. And that active pursuit of those types of activities could be both a social interaction, as Dell did with having a end of the day mixology gathering. I thought that was fabulous when she described that and how that went on, that the mixologist sent them all, here are the things that you need to have, and we're going to walk through how to do several different things and how to host them within a party. So that social side of it. Being the accountant, I'm more concerned with the culture side of the actual business itself. So I think we've learned over the past year and a half that you can do a reasonably good job with meetings as far as encouraging activities. But you've got to, I think the real important side of that is, as managers in managing your own business, you have to step back and listen to your employees and how they're going to apply what they're doing and how they're applying, and does it mesh with what your overall organization goals have been and those performance indicators. So communication, both interactive and where it's not face-to-face type of communications, and learning and utilizing things such as Teams or Zoom as far as meetings, where you give plenty of opportunity. You just don't get together to preach to your employees. You get together to listen to them and to share ideas and thoughts, and that'll promote that culture better.
Yeah, Nancy, I have a friend who has an entirely virtual firm, and they do pizza parties, just to make sure everybody stays connected. They'll have a meeting and they send pizzas out to every employee, and they have pizza parties online, and they talk about some things, and they keep their friendship. I think it's important to note culture is not just virtual. Culture is who you are anyway. So when you're hiring and you're putting people into your business, you're building a culture already. And so it may be something that you need to think about when you go, if you decide to do something where you're more virtual. But it's bigger than just, it does change it a little bit, but it's also dependent upon who you're hiring to start with and if they already fit your culture.
That's great. It seems like perhaps companies that had a good culture to begin with before COVID and before we went online may have been more successful through it. I guess that's an empirical question, but a very interesting point. Okay, we have another question. What is the coolest thing you see happening in the accounting space right now with software and the move to the cloud?
So I'll take that one, because this is something, accounting technology is something that I love the most about what I do. I do taxes and, just accounting, bookkeeping, etc. But accounting technology is just so cool, and it's changing so quickly, like the rest of, technology is changing everything. But accounting is certainly one of those things. And the way that is happening is through what they call RPAs, robotic process automation. You can take something that is repeatable and build a small program, if you will, but there's programs that exist to build these little mini programs with, and it makes these process repeatable. So things like maybe even entering a tax return, an easy tax return. You don't have to hire a person to do that anymore. There's a robotic process that will pick the information off the page and know what to do with it and where to fill it. And this is happening more and more and more in the accounting sphere, especially in the big firms, because they have tech people on staff to build these processes. But you'll find it's starting to happen more and more in small firms, and also in our businesses, in our clients. They're starting to use RPAs. Then you take those RPAs one step further from robotic processes, and you get into artificial intelligence. And that's when you get into machine learning. And it's not the process, it's just repeatable. But now it's figuring out better ways to take that data and get more information to improve. And so that's happening in the accounting realm right now. People are building these programs. It's happening in the big accounting firms, and they're building them for their clients. And it's really interesting to watch happen. And while it seems kind of out there right now, it's coming to you. It'll be something that you get involved in before long.
Great. We have another question. this relates back to the model of change. How can businesses adapt to change acceptance differences between generations? So Tim, you mentioned that a little bit. Maybe give some prescriptive advice on that.
Well, generation adaptations to particularly remote working and working from home, performing your business functions in a technology environment, there's definitely, a lot of studies have shown the generational differences, very readily acceptable by the younger generations and much more rigid and question the viability of it by older generations. So that presents this discord. And the big concern that a lot of businesses are looking at is, how can we keep our highly experienced people who know our business, but they know our business the way we used to do it, not the way that we're going to be doing it or are now doing that. And that is a major question associated with that change environment. So I like to go back to Edgar Schein's model that I discussed very early in the presentation, or his general theory that says we have to look at two things, all right? The two main things. Our employees, when they're faced with change, they often see that change as painful for them. There's a lot of things they have to do. They may see giving up control. They may see their performance being evaluated less favorably. And you can think of a number of things it can do. The other thing that we have is we can have the pain of changing itself. And so what we have to do is that we have to lower that pain of changing so that the personal change of pain, it no longer is an issue. It's like, that's an easy step. And I was faced with that, about a year and a half ago. I really hadn't done any online teaching, and I'd done no virtual teaching within it. So how did Marshall University adapt me as the old guy that's taught face-to-face classes to teaching in a virtual environment? We had a week of classes showing me how to do it and telling me, look, this is pretty easy. And for the most part, it was. So my fear of change, being an older generation, was substantially reduced. While I still miss seeing students face to face, I no longer was fearful of how it would be. And I learned things that I could do to make sure that my students were learning effectively, that their temptation and ability to cheat were reduced as much as possible without feeling like I was totally limiting their abilities. So reducing that change by identifying and educating your older workers is, I think, the easiest way to get around that.
Great. This question is probably a little bit more for Shayna. What is a piece of advice you would give when deciding to switch from a desktop system to implement a cloud-based system?
So yeah, so this is going to be a little bit, this is actually really important. When you decide to take on a cloud-based system, understand that when you bought desktop software, back in the day, we used to go to the, Office Depot, pull it off the shelf, put it in, install it. If we messed it up, we trashed it, we did it again. You're not going to do that with a cloud-based system. You're going to start it, and you need to do it right the first time, because if you do it wrong, when you go to what I call blow it up, we got to blow it up and start again. You can't just fix things in accounting. There's too many subledgers. If you know about accounting, there's so much going on in the background. You need all of that to be right. And if you don't know really truly how to do accounting, hire somebody to help you set it up and train you on it, or at least make sure that you've got the right systems for you. Because what happens is, if you set it up and you put in all that time and it's not working out, and then you come to us, we'll probably, if we can fix it, we'll fix it. But if we can't fix it, you're just going to be back to square one, and we're going to have to do it. We're going to have to do it from scratch, and you're going to end up paying for that service anyway. So it's really better to get started on the right foot, and then you can either hire somebody to take it from there and do all of your accounting for you because of that great collaboration tool that's available, or you can have them train you and just kind of check in on you and make sure you're doing it right. So the key piece of advice, don't think you're just going to load it and start. Make sure you have a plan.
Okay, that wraps it up for today's Herd Insights Small Business webinar. We appreciate all the questions. We will have one more presentation in this series in the summer during July. Look for your registration email for the next event to arrive in a few weeks. We appreciate your participation today. We appreciate our speakers, Shayna and Tim, and your patience for our technical difficulties. Always remember, we are Marshall.